Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. We are recording episode number 88 today, and today we will be talking about something a little otherworldly and a little supernatural, and you might be wondering what that would be, and it is mystical creatures in all sorts of different countries and cultures. I'm really curious to see what Jared has dug up for me and for all of you today, and I have some facts about some random mystical creatures as well. And I think what's exciting about mystical creatures is, one, it discusses kind of our deep down, our human fears of all sorts of things, usually which involve getting snatched up and eaten by something, never to be seen again, but also just some different animals and creatures in different cultures that people may either love or fear. So it will be an exciting episode for all of you. And we're looking forward to bringing you some exciting new information about mythical creatures. So without further ado, my buddy Jared, what's going on, Jared?
Hey there. Happy Easter. I know,
Thank
obviously,
you,
when people are listening to this, it's a week later. But there's a reason why I bring it up. But before I get into that, follow us, please, on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. Coming from all angles. Me on Instagram. Don, our untranslatable ambassador, social media ambassador. Every now and again, even Chad will open it. You can follow us on Twitter, Untranslatable1, the number 1. I post episodes. I post little stupid things that I see on Twitter. And Songs of the Pod, which is also on our YouTube Song of the Pod playlist. You can also, get into those DMs, give us some ideas for topics, give us some of your untranslatables. Tell us about mythical creatures that you were either afraid of as a child or as an adult, I guess. Or you can email us, untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Or, most importantly, spread a little love with those 5-star reviews and ratings on iTunes and Stitcher. And also, another one, hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Just hit that. It's helpful.
It's a great feeling.
Today is Easter, and the first mythological creature I was thinking of was bunnies that also have something to do with eggs for some reason. But I went to church this morning, Easter Sunday church, and I went only because my mom wanted me to go, and I was like, sure, fine, whatever. And I was first concerned that, well, here's the deal. They have multiple services for Sunday. There's an early one, then there's a children's little presentation thingy, then there's a later one. I didn't want to go to the later one because when I was younger, whenever I went to the later one, with my family almost never did. My dad hated to go to the later one because there was no sort of end time on the later one. Like, they could go as long as they wanted. So this one, I went at the early one. The early one, 6:30 in the morning.
Whew, that is early. That is early. Oh my God. I'm surprised. I'm impressed.
I was assuming it would be like 8, 7:30 at the earliest. And I looked online. I was like, 6:30. I went to bed at 10:30 yesterday, which I've never done on a Saturday. Probably the past 30 years. I'm not even that old. And so I woke up at 5:15 on a Sunday, took a shower and went, and got there at 6:30, and there were only literally 20 to 30 people there. So no one, and it seems like it's a pretty active church. I didn't think no one else was that stupid. And so I went, and it was fine. Luckily it was only like an hour, so that was nice. I think the later service will be longer because I think this was more like the early morning service, but like the later one will have like the choir and have like dancers. So I'm glad I went to the early one, kind of the other way, and I fulfilled my thing to my mom, but my promise to my mom. But I wonder if this negates the whole point of going to church. So they do like they do the little section where they if you're a visitor, please stand up and we'll greet you. And I looked around and I was like, there's like 25 people in here. I'm not standing up.
Right.
And so I didn't stand up, and that's not what I felt guilty about. What I felt guilty about was then after that, they do like they welcome everyone and say good morning and all that stuff. And multiple people asked me, oh, I haven't seen you before. Is this your first time here? I was like, no, I've been here a couple times before.
Oh, jeez. Lying in God's house, Jared. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
One of the ladies like, oh, yeah, I know I've seen you before. And I was like, you liar.
Yes.
No, you haven't.
Oh, that's so funny.
You will not see me
I know
again.
I've seen you here before. Oh, that's great. That is so funny.
Yeah, so I did that, and I came home, and I got home at around 8, and I slept until about noon.
Nice. There you go.
And now I'm caught up. You were in Germany, weren't you, today?
I was all over the mountains today, man. It was great.
What kind of stuff did you do?
Absolutely great. So first of all, very, very early shout out to my mentor, Ivana. She's amazing, and she's the one. She picked me up at like 10:30. So I got up around 9, not nearly as bad as you.
I mean,
but,
that's about the same time I was waking up here with the time difference to go to church.
Right. Yeah, that's actually not that. Yeah. All right. Anyways, you're right. So I get up, and then the first place we go to, actually, we had to drive through from Chomutov, and I took a picture, I was gonna pop it up before we recorded, but I was FaceTiming with my parents and my sisters and my nephews for Easter, so I didn't have time to upload those. But those will be uploaded after this episode. So I got a really cool picture of the map of the mountain area. In German it's called the Erzgebirge. I believe here it's Krušná hory, which is like the or mountains in English is what it means. And so those mountains are what separate the Czech Republic from Germany. And so we started, she picked me up here in Chomutov. We drove through Jirkov, which is the village where she lives in. Stopped there. She showed me an area where there was this really famous guy, forget his name now, but he actually had one of the biggest traveling circuses in Europe until about the 80s or 90s. And so she showed me where
circus. Sound familiar?
Right, no kidding. Glad we didn't go with that podcast name. Really glad we didn't.
I told Don that we almost went with that the other day, and he laughed at me. And I was like, wow.
It's kind of a laughable name, not going to lie. Untranslatable is a much more fitting to what we do here and what our mission is. That's for sure. And so anyways, the crazy thing, though, is from there we went to a couple other villages, and these villages in the mountains, dude, they're beautiful. Like you see, a lot of the architecture here, because we're right on the border with Germany, it was the former Sudetenland, there was a big population of Germans. So a lot of these houses, I think, were built by Germans or have a very more old school German style architecture. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some of our Czech listeners aren't happy to hear that, but it seems, at least to me, that seems like the truth. And so we went up through the mountains, and we went to what's called St. Catherine's Mountain. And we went up there, and there was a watchtower. And she was showing me where it's crazy. If you turn one side, she showed me, this village is in the Czech Republic. Then there's literally a tiny little bridge. We drove over it. A tiny little bridge over a creek. And then you're in Germany.
Oh, nice.
And so what's really crazy about it, though, is before the Czech Republic, so after the fall of communism during the Velvet Revolution, which was 1989, they had a lot of difficulties going over to Germany. And she told me this story when we pulled up to the bridge. And she was like, for us, for any Czech person older than 40, it's still a little odd to so easily get into Germany because there used to be, guards, and you would have to sign all this paperwork and have all of your documents with you. And now it's just like, welcome to Germany, and you just roll over this little tiny bridge. And so we went into this beautiful little town in the mountains called Seifen. And Seifen is very well known for having handmade wooden Christmas ornaments and like the little smoker dudes in Germany. They're these like little, for our listeners who don't know what those are, they're these little wooden guys that there's like a hole cut in them. You light this basically small triangular incense, and then you put it over top of it, and the way they're designed, the smoke comes out of the mouth. And usually they have like a little pipe or something. They're really cool.
Yeah, I think my dad had one of those back in the
My mom has a bunch of them, and it's I would have loved to show my mom this place, but she would have dropped way too much money going here. I already know. Like, she loves all those knickknacks and Christmas ornaments.
Yeah.
And so, but it was also crazy how expensive they were. And the thing that really blew my mind is there's literally shop after shop after shop. I don't know how all these places stay in business year round.
Yeah,
because the competition must be so high, and it seems like every house and every place you go to, you either see like Handwerker, which is like a hand worker or like someone who builds things with their hands. You see like Künstler, which means artist, Holzarbeiter, a woodworker. You see all similar titles, but they're all making these like Christmas ornaments more or less, and that's the whole town.
I wonder if some of them do it like I wonder even though if like they have shops and stuff, if it's a hobby, you know, or is that possible? Like if they have like go to a cubicle,
I have no idea.
And then on you know in their free time they like to make this stuff or something.
Yeah,
because I've been to areas like that too, and it's like there's like you guys are all selling the same thing,
exactly
right next to each other.
Exactly. But I can't even imagine how beautiful it must be come Christmas time. It was also really nice during Easter. And then after that, we went into this really cool museum where it was also like kind of on the foothills of a mountain. Well, really more a big hill, not quite a mountain, but I digress. And we actually went through the museum. And the first house we went to was built and preserved from 1800. Nice. And as you go, they get older and older. So it was like 1800, 1820, all the way up to the 1900s. And we went in this huge farmhouse that was in the 1900s. And that one room on the left side to the door was the kitchen. They had like a nice big like porcelain oven and all this cool stuff. Literally, you cross the hallway. That was the stall where they kept the chickens, the cows, and the sheep. Literally, just you walk across the hall, and there's your livestock.
Where do they sleep?
Upstairs.
Oh, okay.
And their toilets were all on the second floor. So you get to, poop down a floor, I guess. So I'm sure that must have been fun. Right.
Like you're lucky.
Right. But yeah, so it was really interesting to see all these villages, man. And it's just so beautiful here. Like, this whole area has such a bad reputation because people assume it's this ugly industrial area. And it's gorgeous. Like, all the nature, there's a bunch of beautiful lakes, gorgeous mountains, and you drive up these winding roads. It's fantastic. And I tried to take as many pictures as possible. Oh. At one point, I felt like kind of like an asshole because she would be talking. I like whip out my phone and I was like, sorry, like I'm paying attention. But, so here, I'll just look.
Good job.
Right. Exactly. I'll just look right now. So from today alone, I have, let's see here. So the first picture I took was actually information about Easter, and it's in Czech and in German. Sorry for our non-native German and Czech speakers. So let's see here. There's got to be, oh man, I took probably at least 60 pictures, if not more. And for me, that's a lot of pictures. For some people, 60 is nothing.
That's how many pictures you take in like a year.
Right. No kidding. So yeah, but it was great. It was great. And like, the people were also pretty nice. And here, Jared, just so you can see, I'll post this later. But there was like this huge Santa dude that's all wood carved when we walked in. So that was really sweet. Beautiful churches. And the other really cool thing about Xifen is they have all these gorgeous little.
Is that a street light? Like a lamp?
Yeah, it's a street light. Yeah,
with
and
like
they
a
paint
nutcracker
them.
in it.
Yeah. And they paint them. So they have nutcrackers, and then you see all these places, Seifner Weihnachtshaus, like a Seifen Christmas house, where they have all these ornaments and stuff. Like I said, my mom would have been in heaven.
Looks like a German Frankenmuth, which is a city in Michigan.
Which is based off of German culture as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so just so you can see, Jared, on the right side is the Czech Republic, on the left side is Germany, and the line is the border. And so those are all the kind of mountain towns around. And so we went from, maybe if I'll see if I can figure out our way to map my route through here.
Okay.
Because that would be really sweet. So we went from Chomutov to Jirkov, then Bolibor, which I love to say. That sounds like a Lord of the Rings title, Bolibor. Up to Bolibor, then Lesna, which has also a really cool museum and a really nice restaurant. Then Hoře Svatní Kateřiny, which is where the tower was, where we went up and we could see where Czech Republic and Germany was. And it was so funny, man, just looking down close. Obviously near us was a Czech village, and then literally you look, I don't know, not even half a mile further down the mountain, that was Germany. So it blows my mind being so close to Germany. It was great. But it was great. I have to give a lot of props to my mentor for, we were together from 10:30 and I got home at like 6:40.
Wow.
So it was a long day. I was getting tired towards the end, but it was a great time.
Yeah. Was I assume a lot of walking around and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Was she just in full tour guide mode?
She was, and she is an amazing tour guide. I've learned some things from her, having her be my tour guide for sure. And so today I'm at, right now, we also drove a lot because, from where we went, you had to drive. But I had 10,000 steps. So it's not too
Oh, there
bad.
you go.
That's
It's
like
about
what you're
5 miles
supposed to
right
get.
there. Yeah.
Right. So
It's a
not
good
too
daily
bad,
dose.
but it was great. So I guess that's an early shout out. But is it okay if we start and spread a little love?
Spread a little love, please.
All right. So my first one goes out to every parent's favorite children's toy company, at least in the States. I don't know about abroad, but Lego. That was also said with a hint of sarcasm because a lot of kids forget to pick up their Lego pieces, and then at night parents step on Legos, which is, I think that really, if you want to torture people, just have them walk through a room full of Legos.
Yeah, that's like a Home Alone technique.
Right. But what's crazy, Jared, is Lego has reached 100% renewable energy target 3 years ahead of their schedule. And on top of that, do you know what they did to commemorate their goal and how they celebrated it?
I assume they built something gigantic out of Legos.
They built a wind turbine made entirely out of Lego
Jeez.
bricks.
Lego's crazy, man.
Right?
Like I as a car nerd, I know that they make like these crazy things called Lego Technic, which are like full like scale, not full size, but it's like, well, actually they do make a full size one, but like scale models of like Porsche race cars or like Bugattis.
Right.
And they're so intricate that like the engine, doesn't work, but like it rotates like a normal engine. Like you can make
Right.
it rotate and fire in the proper order. And it's that's cool that they do that, and they not only are they making setting these targets, but then they're like, well, let's also use this to make some crazy Lego stuff.
Right. Oh, it's great. And so, yeah, I think that's amazing. They're running entirely on renewable energy after reaching their target 3 years ahead of schedule. The company has achieved its ambitious goal due to the completion of a 258 megawatt offshore wind farm in the Irish Sea, building a giant wind turbine. And then, as I said, they built a giant wind turbine made out of Legos to celebrate. And what's crazy is this wind turbine now has actually broken the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest wind turbine made out of Legos. The model is made from, how many Lego bricks do you think it's made out of, Jared?
It's got to be at least 2 million.
Nope. It's a lot lower than you would think, which I don't understand how they did it.
Well, I guess it could be lower if like they're not using like the Legos that we had as kids that are like,
probably not.
tiny little pieces that you can put like.
Right.
So I'd say, okay, less than that.
Significantly less than 2 million.
58,000.
146,000.
Whew. Man. That's impressive.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's pretty wild.
Impressive.
So yeah, and what's cool as well is they said they're hoping that breaking the record with the wind turbine will raise the awareness of the importance of renewable energy. And at this point, I feel like a broken record, but I'm still going to keep preaching it. We need healthier and more environmentally friendly ways to use energy, and wind turbines are a great way to do it.
Yeah, and it's cool to see a toy company, be at the forefront of a lot of this stuff. Which
Right.
I believe they're Danish. Yeah, they're from Denmark. So
Yeah.
shout out to the Danish people over there.
Exactly. And my next shout out is kind of a continuation of our last episode, but India is actually now a world leader in renewable energy. So shout out to India. We mentioned last week that their goal is to have their railway system in Delhi to be completely used by renewable energy. But yeah, so they what?
Solar.
Solar. Yes, solar energy. And actually, never mind. They, believe it or not, they are not number one. They are one of the world leaders. Take a guess which country is number one.
European?
No.
South American?
Yep.
Brazil?
No. The number one with the highest rating is Chile.
Oh,
India
which you
is
also
number
mentioned
2
recently.
Yes, with their having a huge shipment of electric cars. So here, I'll just read you. I think these are the top 10. So number 1 is Chile, 2 is India, 3, which may come to a surprise for many people, including myself, is Jordan. 4 is Brazil.
India is kind of a surprise to me, honestly, because it's there is a lot of pollution there as well, and it's
Right. Right. So we have Chile, India, Jordan, Brazil. This one's also pretty interesting. Rwanda, the Philippines,
okay,
China,
Also,
Mexico.
kind of surprising.
Right, Mexico.
All these are kind of surprising, to be honest with you.
Peru,
Okay.
and Thailand.
Huh.
So not Germany, not a lot of these countries that we hear about for being so green, but these are also they're called climate scope scores, which are basically reports done by an energy researcher, and they studied over 80 indicators such as clean energy policies, power selector structures, emissions, and installed capacities. For 103 countries. What's interesting about this, though, Jared, that I think you and our listeners should know, is that, believe it or not, developing nations are actually driving the world's gradual shift towards renewable energy.
Seems
and
like
India, as a developing nation, India has definitely become the leader of the pack, which I think should be a sign for the more developed countries out here that, hey, if these developing nations are able to make this gradual shift towards renewable energy, maybe if you got your lobbyists' hands out of your pockets, maybe you could also be a driving force in the shift towards renewable energy.
Yeah, I think some of that probably also has to do with the fact that that industrialization is coming in at a high rate in a lot of these countries. So they're since a lot of these industries are newer, they're like, well, now that we're building them now, we should probably, make them with the most, be as energy efficient as possible and sort of as aware and concerned about the environment when building these places as possible. That's great. Shout out to India again.
Right. And we're happy to keep giving these environmentally friendly shout outs to countries moving in the right step, moving in the right direction. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
My last shout out for today, Jared, this is kind of a crazy story. Goes out to University of Kentucky, which they are now offering $1 lunches after students went on a hunger strike for basic needs. So one dining location found on the second floor of Erickson Hall has opened its doors for the first time on Monday to any student, regardless of financial situation, is welcome to purchase a $1 meal. Even at $1, we cannot have boring meals. The resident district manager for UK Dining told Newsweek, we still have to be creative with what we serve. It has to be on par with what we're doing in other places. The new dining options opening day came after students advocated for a variety of changes, including affordable housing and food, by embarking on a multi-day hunger strike and occupying the main building. Hunger striking and occupying the main building showed the university that hundreds of students, as well as the public, care about this and need to see change. So I think maybe some other universities in the States need to maybe take some steps in the right direction to fight for more affordable housing and more affordable food. Sorry, Jared, what did you want to say?
So they did not have like I don't want to call it free because these people pay tuition, but they didn't have like a dining option that was sort of with the tuition?
Well, they probably do, but it's probably expensive. I mean, I remember Albion was what, $8 a meal? Something like that?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, actually, I remember that because that was actually, it was part of the tuition, but it was a separate fee. Because when we moved to our fraternity, the dining was much less than when...
it was way cheaper.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And I think the food was better at our fraternity. Shout out to Mary. Mary was the best. That's for sure.
I might have been better, but I don't know.
Whoa there, Chief. That'd be fighting words.
No, I might agree with you that what she made was better. And it's easier to make better stuff when it's on a smaller scale also.
Oh, for sure.
But also, I as far as health goes, I don't know about that part of the options.
Yeah, but I think food in America in general is not always the healthiest, including at dining halls.
I can't think of any dinner options that we had at our fraternity that can be considered like a healthy, unless you made something yourself,
right,
and got creative in the kitchen.
Really? I think sometimes we had some meals that were somewhat healthy. But we can talk about that later.
That's fair. I guess sometimes we did have... Yeah, that's fair. I'm being harsh.
Especially the nicer dinners, like bid dinner when we had like steak and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And vegetables, we had green beans, and I think that wasn't too bad health-wise.
Touche.
But anyways,
gator piss.
Anyways, shout out to the students and the people in the public near the University of Kentucky who fought for more affordable lunches. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. I think there are so many things that colleges and universities gouge their students on and their faculty sometimes. I mean, me as a grad student, when I was at MSU, I would have to pay a lot of money if I wanted to go to the cafeteria. Well, not a lot, but I think it was was like $9, $10 maybe. Excuse me. Faculty could get in, I think, for $6. I mean, a grad student is essentially, I worked for the university.
Right,
I
you
was
taught
just,
classes.
Right. I just was not at that high level of status as faculty, but I was still a part of the institution. You know, I was a cog in the wheel.
The faculty that had to pay $6 also made more money than you did.
Of course.
And you had to pay more than them.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Yeah,
well, Jared,
I also think that like college students these days, they get like a lot of shit for being like, it's like, oh, they don't appreciate anything. Oh, they're complaining. Right. And I don't know, maybe that's true. I don't know. But I think also that what's overlooked is that a lot of the change that happens in society usually starts with college students and usually starts with younger people in general. So I think, sorry.
You're good.
I got a text message.
I'm writing somebody right now as you're talking, but I'm listening to you.
But even I think they get like a lot of shit for being like, oh, they don't appreciate anything. They don't understand how tough it is in the world, and they don't get it. But I think it's just a lot of grumpy old people that forgot what it was like when they were in college 50 years ago. And I think it's cool to see that kind of stuff because this is where it starts. And as you always like to say, I believe the children are the future.
For sure. And little fun fact for you, Jared. If you want to mention how much the prices of college and everything have gone up, when my dad was studying at Eastern Michigan University, he told me he worked a summer job. That was it. Worked a summer job. And with his salary from his summer job, he had enough to pay for a car payment, his entire tuition and books, and an apartment downtown Ann Arbor, which back then I'm sure downtown Ann Arbor was a lot cheaper than nowadays. But still, nowadays I think you would have to work 80 hours a week just to cover your college tuition and your books.
Well, I just pulled up a list of the most expensive colleges in the U.S. I working my full-time job would have to give, for some of these schools, it's more than my salary was.
It's definitely more than mine here in the Czech Republic.
Let me just list a couple.
Without a doubt.
Oh, for sure it is. I mean, the number 7 is Tufts University. Annual tuition. This is the cheapest of the 7 I'm about to say.
Okay.
$54,000 a year.
Ooh, that is pricey.
Franklin and Marshall, I haven't even heard of this school. It's a liberal arts school. Oh, it's close to me in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice.
$54,000 also. It's, a couple $100 more. Trinity, $54,000. University of Chicago, $54,000. Harvard Mudd, probably liberal arts, $54,000. Vassar College, $55,000. Columbia, which is a Ivy League in New York, $57,000. This is per year, by the way.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, that's like those are more than a lot of people make in a year. I think probably more than the majority of the U.S. makes in a year.
Right.
Yeah. So it's crazy to think that they and I wonder, do those include their meal plans? I would doubt it.
Probably not, and not room and board, not their accommodation and their meals. Most definitely not.
Yeah.
Then that's got to be at least around like another 10,000 per year, I would imagine. If not more.
I remember Duke. I think with all of that together was like around 70 or something like that.
Oh God, that's unreal.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's unreal. That's horrible. That's absolutely horrible.
Anyway, it's not horrible? Our untranslatable phrases.
That is true. Well, Jared, I have one, and I think I may have used this one on the pod before, but I think this is, in a way, a little bit fitting since you mentioned it is Easter today. So I have a German one for you, and it is Weichei, or soft egg.
Oh, yeah, I think a long time ago. But also, what I try to remind myself is that not everyone's listened to every episode, so I'm sure there are plenty of people that haven't heard it. Weichei. What's Weich mean? Like
soft.
Soft.
Weich,
soft egg.
Soft egg.
Soft egg.
Don't be a soft egg, Jared.
Oh, it's like don't be I'm not going to use that word.
I know what word you were thinking about, but it's probably a good idea you don't use it.
Now I'm trying to think of the actual word. Don't be like a wimp.
Don't be a wimp.
Don't be a wimp about it.
Yeah, don't be a coward. Don't be a wimp. Exactly.
Yeah.
Hit that ham horn, buddy. Good work.
Woo. My first one is from someone, one of my friends named Sydney. She speaks Spanish, and she said she used to always hear this when she studied abroad in Spain, and it's no pasa nada.
No pasa nada. Something, nothing.
Nothing is happening.
Nothing's happening.
Que pasa is like what's happening.
Right. Oh, that's right. Duh. No pasa nada.
So nothing is happening.
No sé, señor. I don't know. No pasa nada. Nothing's happening. Is it like?
So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
We had a plan this today for our time, and you got thrown off a little bit because you came back a little later, and you kept on saying, "Sorry, it's going to be a little bit later." And my response to you could have been, "No pasa nada."
Like it's all good, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that. It sounds good. And Spanish is such a beautiful language.
I know, it just sounds so good, doesn't it?
No pasa nada.
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue. I mean, everything in Spanish rolls off the tongue. It's kind of supposed to, but I love that.
I love the fact that Spanish has the rolled R.
I don't, because I can't do it.
Right, you have to do it back here, right? You can do it like a in your throat, yeah?
Yeah.
It's not the same.
No.
It's not the same. You can actually learn how to roll your R. I'm not going to teach you on the podcast, but we can talk about it afterwards. Because I learned it. People who say you can't learn it, they're full of shit. They don't know what they're talking about. You can learn it. Mind over matter, baby. That's all you need. Mind over matter. All right, Jared. So we had a kind of a funny and special holiday yesterday for some of our listeners out there who do enjoy the herb, as they say in Jamaica.
420, bro.
It was 420. And I have a special kind of 420 related one for you in Czech today.
Okay.
So it is Daci Pava, which means to have a peacock.
Does that mean to like hallucinate? Mm-mm. Okay. To have a peacock. I don't know. I imagine seeing like seeing all the colors of the is like to freak out?
No. So I'll give you some information about where this phrase comes from. It's kind of interesting. So as I said, pava in Czech means peacock, but it's only a coincidence. The expression actually comes from the German word Paff. Do you know what Paff means? Mm-mm. This word has the same meaning as the English word puff.
Oh, okay. To have a puff. Oh, okay. It means like to smoke weed, essentially.
Yeah. To smoke cannabis, have a puff. So Daci Pava is to have a puff. Yeah.
To have a peacock.
Have a peacock, but it means like have a puff. And so Jared, I will reveal to you where I have found a lot of my Czech untranslatables, because I think this is a cool website, and I think our listeners could also benefit of it. One, if they're wondering where the heck am I coming up with this crap, because they may not believe me. But I actually found a lot of these on Radio Prague, and it's a section called Sound Czech. So every week they have different articles, and usually these articles also have a song associated with them. And so there's this song, I'm not even going to read the song title, but basically that's where I found a lot of these cool Czech idioms and untranslatables.
Okay.
So there you go. So that's where I found this one. And as I was scrolling through here, I found it at first, and I was like, I don't really want to talk about cannabis-related things on our podcast. But since it was 420, and I just thought it was funny, I figured, why not?
Yeah, and it's untranslatable. We're not telling you to smoke weed. We're just giving you the facts.
That's right. That is right.
My next one is Somali. And interesting thing, I was looking at a list of Somali idioms, untranslatable, excuse me. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are pretty violent. This one's not, though. Sirka dir dul ka dir. The sky is far, the earth too.
Sky is far, but the earth too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Is this also a violent one?
No.
Okay.
More.
Is it?
Well, go ahead.
Is it like? I don't know. Is it like you're a big dreamer, or like you have unattainable goals?
Though.
I have no idea.
Well, you're close. You think about the unattainable goals, and I'm going to give you a.
Ooh, all right.
I looked to the judges, and they said yes.
I'm glad the untranslatable judges approve.
What was that? Did you see that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that was weird. Anyway, so yeah, the meaning that they give is to express when you are in need of help, but you're not in a position to get help or support from anywhere. So it's like not only is the sky out of reach, but the earth is out of reach too.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. All right, Jared, I decided, you know what? Since you gave me a Spanish one, I'm going to give you a Spanish one as well.
Okay.
So here you go. It's one word, madrugada, which, so let me explain this one for you, because these one-word untranslatables are always difficult to explain because it's not a phrase, right? Phrases you can kind of decipher. One word, if you don't speak the language, like we can get away with it with German since we both speak it.
Right.
I might be able to sometimes get away with it in Czech. That would be interesting if you gave me a Czech untranslatable and if I knew what the words were.
Yeah.
That would be
I make a
interesting.
point not to find any because
Right.
you can,
Which makes sense.
You're
Which
in no
makes
position
really good
to
sense.
not have a. If I find any, I'll just give them to you.
Right. So, madrugada. So, Jared, we have a phrase in English. Nothing good happens after
2 a.m. or whatever, midnight.
right? But this is a bigger time span. Let's see here. I'm trying to say it without giving it away. Well, just take a guess. So it's part of it is after midnight.
So it's like not dusk, but after midnight. Well, it's like the essentially the morning that is when everyone's asleep, like the time when everyone's asleep.
Hit that ham horn, my man. Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, madrugada is the time of day occurring between after midnight and early morning. So basically, yeah, that sleep time or that party time, depending on the person you are.
Or if you're me, the church time, I guess.
Exactly.
I have one more, and it's Danish. Shout out to our Lego makers. And I'm sure I'm going to mess this up, but it's Hedet Keget Hedet/Skeget. I'll explain later.
Okay.
I postkassen, which I believe you probably know what that means.
Post box?
Yep. Or a mailbox. Or that's the quote unquote male version. And then the female version, they mean the same thing, but is Fietnen gerne I postkassen. And the first one, the male version, is hair/beard in the mailbox. Or if you're talking about a lady, you'd say braids in the mailbox.
Beard in the mailbox? Beard hairs in the mailbox or braids in the mailbox?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an example? I don't even know where to begin.
We kind of have a similar one in English involving hair being in something it shouldn't be. So some people might say, for example, there's a hair in the butter. Have you heard that before?
I have not, no.
Oh, well, there's an English one for you.
Hair
or
in the
American,
butter.
but- yeah.
So is it just like something that's out of place?
No. That's not what hair in the butter means. Or hair in the mailbox.
What? Okay, what? I have no idea what does it mean.
Let me think. I'm trying to think of an example. So you and I just a second ago, I mentioned to you, hey, did you see that? And it's because something weird happened with our Skype. Mm-hmm. So say it didn't correct itself, which I guess it did. Looks like it did. And say our Skype were to shut off, and it would stop recording, and I would say to you, looks like we have a hair in the mailbox here.
Looks like we got a problem here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's essentially they have a tricky problem, and they're about to figure it out. Good job.
All right. Nice. That's
I don't really
interesting.
understand where that comes from. Why is hair in the mailbox? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I wish I could tell you. I have no idea.
But they're not all supposed to make sense.
Right. Exactly.
You know what also doesn't make sense?
Mythical creatures.
Yeah. So I want to start, before we get into some, in different cultures and stuff, what are some popular ones you remember from your childhood, from our childhood?
Okay. So one that I actually just learned about probably the summer before I came here was the Dog Man. Have you heard about the Dog Man?
Not related to werewolves?
Well, kind of, I think. Basically, in the upper parts of Michigan, there's a myth. Here, let me Google it real quick. I don't want to misinform anyone about the Dog Man.
I think they just might have seen a very bearded UPer walking around.
I mean, I haven't been up there, but maybe they saw me walking around. Who knows? But, okay, so the Michigan Dog Man. So in Michigan folklore, and there's actually a whole book about Michigan folklore, or they're like horror stories based in Michigan called Michigan Chillers. Both of my nephews love these stories and read them all the time. Anyways, in Michigan folklore, the Michigan Dogman was allegedly witnessed in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. The creature is described, here you go, Jared, as a 7-foot-tall, blue or amber-eyed, bipedal canine animal with the torso of a man and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. According to legends, the Michigan Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in 7. So yes, so this was the summer before I came here. It was 2017. My ex-girlfriend was camping up north with one of her friends, and they heard these crazy screams. And as a joke, when she came back, that was like their whole joke with all their friends was, oh, it must be the Dogman. And so ever since, I would always joke with them. And like if we heard something, I'd be, what? Oh, is that the Dogman? So yeah. And then what's interesting, though, in 1987, the legend of the Michigan Dogman gained popularity when a disc jockey named Steve Cook recorded a song about the creature and its reported sightings. So there you go.
Well, I'm sure now it's just every year that ends in 7, there's someone that has some sort of noise or machine or something that just makes that noise.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Michigan Dogman, huh? Interesting. I've never heard of that. We don't have these ridiculous stories in the lower part of the
in the burbs.
Yeah. Some I remember. Some. Sorry, I don't know if around this time I never know if I'm sick
or
if it's
allergies.
allergies.
Just say it's allergies. It's all about mental, Jared. All about mental.
Yeah, I say that so people don't be like, oh, don't touch me.
Right.
Some I remember from when I was a kid. The boogeyman. That's just a generic monster.
Yep.
I found out that it's pretty popular in a lot of cultures. They have different names for wherever you go.
Right.
But it's essentially just a monster used to get kids to not misbehave.
Right. In Chile, I know they call it El Cuco because my best friend in high school, my buddy Robert, who's Chilean, we were I think 3 or 4 years older than his sister. And when we were freshmen in high school, I remember being in his house one time. We're watching a scary movie. And his sister came down and started watching it with us, and then he looked at her and went, El Cuco, and and she freaked out and she ran away. So that's like the Chilean version, I guess, of our boogeyman. So yeah, I'm sure it's in a lot of different
Did you ever
cultures.
believe in any of those things when you were a kid? Were you nervous? Were you scared of monsters in your room or like?
Well,
I'll tell you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I've always been really into wolves and dogs. I mean, Jared, I'm a dog person. Our listeners now also. I love dogs. God damn it, Jared. I hate you.
Refer to our previous episode.
Right.
Or 2 episodes ago, now that I think about it.
So anyways, I used to read a lot of books about werewolves, and I think part of me kind of wanted to believe they were real, but I was never really afraid of stuff.
Right, encountering these things.
Right. Right. But yeah, I mean, one that's I've always thought is kind of interesting, though, is Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
The Bigfoot, yeah. Yeah, I was doing some research on Bigfoot before. It's hilarious, too. All of these, not all of them, but most of these, like Loch Ness, obviously we'll talk about, Bigfoot, they all have their own websites. Look like they were made in 94 by these people that are convinced. And they're not even convinced. They're not convinced that they exist. They think we're convinced that they don't exist.
Right.
they obviously exist. You guys are the fools thinking that they don't exist.
Right.
And yeah, Sasquatch and or Bigfoot. I think that one's popular. It's not one. There's apparently reported to be thousands of them. They're just very elusive giant creatures.
Right.
And it's so funny too because all the pictures of them, look like they're from miles away and look like
they
still look like a guy in a suit.
Right. Could be a guy, just a really big dude in a gorilla suit for all we know.
Oh, for sure.
I love in America we have Jack Link's beef jerky, and they have a whole series called Messin' with Sasquatch, and it is hilarious.
Yeah,
absolutely hilarious.
They do some sort of childish prank on the Sasquatch and embarrass him, and then
And
the
it
Sasquatch
always
just like
bites him in the ass.
yeah, like throws him or like
Right.
beats him up or something.
Like my favorite one is when they're in the car and they have the beef jerky, right? That's how they sell this beef jerky.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Come on, buddy, don't worry." And he pulls up to grab the handle of the car. They screech the car forward a little bit. "Oh, sorry, it's okay." And he tries to open it, and they do the same thing. And then I'm gonna try to do my best Sasquatch impersonation here, Jared. And he's just like, "Oh." And he pulls open the door, rips the door open, and throws the guy out of the car. They're so funny. Oh man,
Yeah,
they're great.
Yeah. And another one similar to that, at least I assume it's similar to that, is the Abominable Snowman. Which in my mind, I don't know anything about I haven't even looked it up. Maybe I should have looked up. But in my mind, the Abominable Snowman is just like the winter it's like your polar bear to your grizzly bear kind of thing. It's
Right.
like the polar bear version. Or Yetis, that's also what they call it. I forgot about that. And the Yeti is a folklore of Nepal, apparently.
Interesting. Okay.
Or Yeti or Abominable Snowman is an ape-like creature that is taller than an average human, that is said to inhabit the Himalayan and Siberian regions of East Asia. And it's just like these. It not only are these stories to me, I don't want to say ridiculous, but it's like people. It's really that people want to believe these things. Where
Right.
it's like,
for sure.
Where it's like they've convinced themselves so hard that they exist, where now it's not even possible to convince them that they don't exist. It's now just a matter of trying to find it. Like I'm looking at this Wikipedia on the Abominable Snowman, and they have like in the snow on a fucking mountain in the Himalayas, they have like a footprint, and
Right.
it's like oh yeah, we're in it, and they have like a pickaxe next to it to show how gigantic it is. And I was like, I mean, okay, and apparently. They're still seeing these things. A Yeti was reportedly captured in Russia in December of 2011, and initially the
Right.
story claimed that a hunter reported having seen a bear-like creature trying to kill one of his sheep, but after he fired his gun, the creature ran into the forest on two legs. The story then claimed the Border Patrol soldiers captured a hairy two-legged female creature similar to a gorilla that ate meat and vegetation. That was later revealed as a hoax or possibly a publicity stunt for charity. No.
Right. Right.
Another one. Now this one. Now this one's a little different, but I'm going to say this: if I were to believe the existence of any mythological creatures, it would be something that's coming from bodies of water. Now
Right.
now
There's a lot of
specifically.
them.
Specifically the ocean. Because Loch Ness, well, let me talk about Loch Ness first. Loch Ness is the, giraffe-looking thing that lives in a lake. I think the lake is called Loch Ness in Scotland. And there's all these claims that there's this, creature that exists in the lake. It's harder for me to believe that there's something living in a lake, because lakes are pretty searchable.
Right.
But they claim, there's
Unless
a whole
they're super deep.
Yeah,
And I don't know how
guess
deep
so.
Loch Ness is.
There's a website, nessie.co.uk, for anyone interested, and they have a list of all the sightings of it. And the last sighting was Wednesday, June 15th, 2011. And I'm not even gonna bother reading the story; they're all the same. It's just
Right.
someone was
Oh,
near
for
the water
sure.
and they thought they saw it. They saw
Right.
some odd creature. But if the ocean ones, I would believe those. And one, I guess I'd consider this a mythological creature.
The Kraken.
No, but I would believe that. I would believe a lot that's going on in the ocean. That's not the one I was going to bring up, but we could talk about the Kraken too.
Moby Dick.
Isn't that just a giant whale?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's true.
Yeah, I'd believe that one too. I'd believe all of these mermaids.
Dude, there was a documentary on the History Channel about mermaids.
I thought you were about to say there was a mermaid in it. I think you were going to say, oh, I saw one. Well, did you watch it?
I did, and it was really crazy. It freaked me out so much, though, that I did a bunch of research, and it pretty much debunked everything. So I wasted an hour watching this documentary on mermaids, right?
I'm sure it was entertaining.
It totally was. But basically, the way that it started was they they had this. These scientists were recording something. I think they were trying to record whale calls underwater, right? Mm-hmm. And then they heard this thing that was unlike any whale call they ever heard. And I still don't think they have an explanation for that. But then, like a few years later, what they thought was a mermaid. You can Google this. What they thought was a mermaid washed up on shore. I'm not sure what they eventually said it was.
I've heard that a lot of quote unquote mermaid sightings tend to be manatees. Was it a manatee?
Really? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a little rude.
Right. But, well, hey, they got the name man in them, so
Could they find a more attractive fish?
Right.
I guess manatee's not a fish. I think it's a mammal. But yeah. So I mean, mermaids are huge, and I mean, not that they don't make any sense to me. You know how that would exist as a thing. But anything in an ocean, I'm in no place to fully rule out, as ridiculous as that sounds. I mean, I'm not one like looking up stories on this stuff or like trying to figure it out. But if someone told me that there was a kraken that did exist and it just turns out that it's this giant weird fish that we've never heard of, I totally believe it. We haven't explored the majority of the oceans.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Who knows what's in those things?
Uncharted waters.
And not only have we not explored the majority of the oceans, but the ocean... You know, fish and you know, reptiles in the ocean and amphibians and stuff, those are some of the most prehistoric animals we have out there. And so, like, the fact that there would be some weird giant lizard thing living in the water seems very likely to me.
Yeah, probably more likely than Bigfoot. Sorry for all of our Bigfoot listeners out there.
Easy.
Slipping on gator
We're going to get Bigfoot fighters coming after us.
Right. Right. You know what's also crazy? If any of our listeners who are listening to this right now are into these kind of things, mythical creatures, there is a really entertaining series that I enjoyed the hell out of it and watched it from start to finish. Loved every episode. It's called Grimm. Have you heard of this before, Jared? Mm-mm. So Grimm is basically about. So they have basically two types of creatures in this show. You have a Grimm, which is a person who can see these creatures, and then you have these creatures. It made me really mad because they butchered the German word. They say Wesen, which would be Wessen, right, in German, which is not a word that I know of. The word is actually Wesen, Wesen, and Wesen means creature or being. And so basically, the way the television show works is the Grimms are related to the actual brother Grimm who wrote all the fairy tales, right? Mm-hmm. And the fairy tales that they wrote also do have different scary creatures in them, you know, mythical creatures, werewolves, vampires, all sorts of stuff, right? Well, in this show, this guy who's, of course, a police detective starts being able to see these weird things. And at first, he thinks he's going crazy, right? But then his aunt comes to him before she dies and explains everything to him, tells him he's a Grimm, who are these special people who can see these creatures, who look like humans, but then they can morph into these creatures. Like, it's really crazy. The concept of the show obviously is very sci-fi or
right.
you know. So
fantastical.
If you're into realistic series, this is not one to watch. But if you're into fantasy, it's really interesting, and it has to do a lot with different creatures from different countries. So one that I learned about is from the Philippines, and it's called an aswang. And what an aswang is it's this weird kind of grayish blue skin creature that will eat this is kind of gross, so listener discretion advised. An aswang will eat the baby of a pregnant woman to stay young. And in the show, the aswang is actually an older Filipino woman. And so what's interesting, though, is, you know, they hunt down these creatures. It's really crazy. And there's all these different creatures. You have and a lot of them have German names, which I also like. So he befriends a guy who they call a Blutbad, which is German for bloodbath, which is basically a werewolf. And the way it works is he hunts him down, thinks he's going to kill him. Usually Grimms and these creatures would always kill each other, right? But they were the first ever peaceful Grimm and creature relationship, these two guys, and he's one of the good creatures. A lot of the creatures are evil. They're into nefarious things, right? But the TV show, if you want to analyze it, I think has a lot to do with, in a way, intercultural, interethnic, and interracial relations in society. You could look at it that way, but it's a cool show. It's called Grimm.
That makes sense.
Check it out.
Yeah. Accepting things that are unknown to you, and trying to understand, different things, and I'm not calling people things, but I'm talking about in the TV show.
Right.
So let's. I found bunch of list of different ones that people believe in different countries. Let me start with Libya.
Okay.
Have you heard of the Acephali?
I have not.
Acephali or Acephali, Acephali. They were human-like creatures that were believed to have lived in Libya. Acephali had their faces on their chest because their heads were removed by gods as a result of rebellion.
Interesting.
Some were able to find their removed heads and carry them under their arms. The word Acephali means without a head. There you go.
Oh, nice. Okay. I got one for you, Jared.
Okay.
It is called the Wendigo. Have you heard of the Wendigo?
No. The name sounds familiar, though.
So a Wendigo is a fabled Algonquin, which is a Native American tribe, monster that is said to haunt the woods of North America and Canada. The Wendigo is a monster associated with starvation and cannibalism, but what was most terrifying was that the Wendigo's hunger could never be satiated. So what's interesting is some people associate the Donner Party, which is a party of pioneers who became stranded in the Western Mountains and resorted to eating the dead. And some people say that there were Wendigos involved, which is kind of interesting. And then what's funny is there are even reports of actual men who would be discovered after living a winter alone with what they call Wendigo psychosis, an insatiable desire to eat human flesh. So there you go. And if you are a horror fan, you can read the Algernon Blackwood's fictional story called The Wendigo for more information.
I have another Native American one. The Acheri is a mythical creature in Native American folklore who is believed to be a revenge spirit. And a lot of these also, I wanted to mention, do have some sort of symbolism to them. Like there's a lot of them are trying to either tell some sort of story about the history of where you're coming from, or they're trying to instill something, or they're trying to prevent something. So it's like, if you do this to appease that, then this won't happen to you.
Right.
And this one is considered to be a revenge spirit, as I said. According to the belief, Acheri is a ghost of a young girl that died a terrible death either by being murdered or by being left to die after being abused. Wandering around mountainsides, Acheri comes down at night to spread death, especially among children, by making them sick. Casting its shadow is enough for a cherry to make children sick. Although it is a revenge spirit, it does not target specific individuals and very rarely adults. It's believed to lure some children back to its home in some cases. Wearing red clothes, bracelets, or necklaces is said to provide protection against a cherry. So it's essentially just, I can imagine where this would come from. A lot of cultures a long time ago did not have great health or medicinal tactics, and I assume that this just comes from our hope to keep our children safe in the early years where you're more likely to die. And so they have all these, and so they say, "Oh, my child died when he was 5. The Chetty got him," or whatever.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I got one for you. This is I like the name of this. The name sounds a lot less scary than what it actually. Well, the name sounds a lot less scary than what it is. So this is called a snallygaster. This sounds like something that Dr. Seuss made up. A snallygaster is a monster that is believed to live in the hills around Washington, D.C. The delightful name comes from the German words for quick ghost or schneller Geist. The snallygaster has been called a dragon or half bird, half reptile, and has a natural enemy, the monstrous wolf. And maybe you've heard of this before, the monstrous wolf called the Dowago.
No.
Or Dowago.
Have you heard of it?
Okay. I have.
Okay. I didn't, when I brought up this topic... It
might have come from the Grimm show, maybe.
When I brought up this topic, I didn't realize that I was talking to a professional here.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah. I mean, I've always been interested in kind of fascinating stuff like this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And
so
I mean,
who knows?
It makes sense though. They're not just these scary things, but they're always some sort of fun story attributed to them.
Right.
I think to me, I always, I'm too realistic or something that I always kind of discount them immediately. It's like, I mean, okay, this might be a fun story, but okay. It's like, this is no different than, as you would say, as you just said, like a Dr. Seuss story or something like that.
Right, for sure.
So this one is from the Middle East area, Islamic mythology, and it's called the Al-Miraj. And it is I think there's a similar one.
Is that
in
where the
European-
word mirage comes from?
I don't know. I don't know. I would.
Okay.
That's a good question. Al-Miraj is a mythical creature in Islamic mythology, which is basically a hare or rabbit with a single horn on his forehead, more like a unicorn, a unihare, as I would call it. Isn't there something like that in European culture too, like a rabbit with a?
Yeah. Well, and we also have the what is it? The Jacko.
Yeah, oh yeah, the jackal thing. Like is it not a jackal?
No, it's called Jacko something. Jacko hare. Or it's called something, and it's a rabbit with antlers on it.
I think it is. No, it's not a jackal hare.
What's it called?
Rabbit with antlers. Oh yeah, it's antlers. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, jackalope.
A jackalope. There we go.
Yeah. So let me finish up on this, and we'll talk about the jackalope after that because I'm curious about that too. Despite its harmless appearance, I mean, it doesn't look harmless. There's a horn coming out of its head. The beast could kill creatures much larger than itself by stabbing them with its horn and then devour them. Honestly, kind of similar to that rabbit from Monty Python. Remember,
that's
the final,
true.
the final
killer
step.
rabbit. Yeah. Where they have to get the special. Oh man, that movie for one is just hilarious, and the way the rabbit kills him, it like jumps on their neck and like, oh yeah.
It's so funny too because it looks like someone just threw like a stuffed rabbit like off camera, just like threw a stuffed rabbit at them and they like hold on to it, and then it's like, all right, now put in some blood to make it look like it's getting killed. According to the belief, only a true witch could render Al-Miraj harmless, ensuring others to come close and carry the beast away.
Interesting.
I don't really know like the story behind it, but yeah, I mean it's apparently there's something to in a lot of cultures to rabbits having things like horns or antlers, as the jackalope does.
Okay, so I got one for you, Jared.
Okay.
This one comes from Australia and from Australian Aboriginal legend, which is called a Yara Ma Yahu, which is a tiny red man that waits up in the trees for someone unexpecting to walk underneath. He then drops down on them and sucks their blood. As with many blood-sucking monsters, including vampires, if you are attacked by the Yaramayahu, you will become one yourself. Yes, and so what's also interesting is the Yara. I just love saying this. The Yaramayahu, which is probably not how they actually say it, but may be related to the more modern drop bear. The drop bear urban legend is that some koala bears are carnivorous and wait for tourists to walk underneath them before falling on them and sucking up their blood and precious bodily fluids.
I just Googled it, and it's a picture of a koala with like
fangs.
Clearly a real koala with fangs, like photoshopped onto it.
Right.
Oh, jeez, it's a really. Oh man.
Sounds graphic.
So one that I think we're all familiar with is doppelgangers. Now, doppelgangers today is a more general term for just someone that looks just like you.
Right.
But it's a legend. Apparently, American in origin, I believe, or maybe English. Excuse me, maybe English. But so doppelgangers are legendary creatures, and they're considered to be the double spirit of a person. So it's like you're almost like you're like in Fairly Odd Parents, there was Crimson Chin, and then there was the Nega Chin and EGA Chin. That's essentially what a doppelganger is.
Right. It's like Spider-Man and Venom.
Oh, there you go. It's a better than a Fairly Odd Parents reference. So, although they look exactly the same as the person in question, doppelgangers were not twins. According to belief, they had no reflections and cast no shadows, and they were considered to be a bad omen. So if you were to see your doppelganger, that's not a good thing. And Noah Brooks suggested in his book, Washington in Lincoln's Time, that Abraham Lincoln saw his doppelganger, and his wife told him that he would not live to serve his second term as the President of the United States. And Lincoln was killed right after he was chosen to be president for the second time. Also, John Donne, the famous English poet, said he saw the doppelganger of his wife when he was in Paris. He came back home to find his wife gave birth to a stillborn baby.
Oh, that's terrifying. So speaking of babies, though, Jared, This one comes from Scandinavian tradition, which, so in Christianity, in theory, if you are not baptized, you will not get into heaven, right?
Yeah.
So in Scandinavia,
Makes me feel a little bit better about lying in church today because I don't think I'm baptized.
you're not you're baptized, aren't
I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, my sister telling me that she was and saying that I wasn't.
She's probably just doing that to mess with you.
Yeah, I was about to say she's done many things in my childhood that I'll bring up like as an 18-year-old, and she was like, "Yeah, that's not true." You're like, okay, just pretending to base my whole life off of that.
Why would your parents baptize your sister and not baptize you?
Well, according to my sister, it's because they like her more, I think.
So I'm going to call bullshit on that one. But anyways, that's too funny. I really hope after this episode you like text your mom like, "Hey mom, was I baptized?"
I mean, I don't care now, but
well, Jared, if you were in Scandinavia, well, now I guess it doesn't really matter because you're not a child. But
it's too late.
Christianity, as I said, if you're not baptized, you cannot get into heaven. Well, in Scandinavia, these children who were not baptized and ended up dying before they were baptized, they become what they call myling. And myling were victims oftentimes of infanticide and would haunt people begging to be buried in hallowed ground. But if you pick up a myling to help bury it, it will become heavier and heavier as you get closer to the graveyard, dragging you into the grave with it.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I have one that's actually very Easter appropriate.
Okay.
And it's the Loup Garou. Or the Rougarou, excuse me, not Rouge, Rougarou. The Loup Garou, or Rougarou, is a myth. Oh, maybe it is Rougarou now that I look at it, because it's a mythical creature in Cajun and French Canadian folklore, also known as the Rouge. That's probably Rougarou because it's French. This creature is basically a French and Cajun counterpart of a werewolf. Mm-hmm. A person becomes a Loup Garou if he or she is put under a specific Loup Garou curse. On the other hand, French Catholics believe that a person became a Loup Garou if he broke the rules of Lent for 7 years in a row. Always 7. Something about that 7.
That number 7, that number 13 can be dangerous as well.
But yeah, so for those of you people that just celebrated Easter, I hope you stuck to Lent.
That's right.
Or else the Loup Garou is coming to get you.
It's coming for you. My next one for you, Jared, comes from Northern Europe. And also Germany, Sweden, Scotland, and Iceland. So depending on where you are from, it has a different name. But interestingly enough, this creature has a similar story in each country. So the Nykur, or in German Nixa, the Nuk in Sweden, Kelpie in Scotland, and Nykur in Iceland, is a shapeshifter that will usually take the shape of a horse near a river. And if you get onto its back, it dives into the water and brings you down where you drown.
I have one that you might like. It's called the Gog Magog.
Okay.
And the Gog Magog was a muscular humanoid giant from the island of Albion.
Interesting. Okay.
For those of you that don't know, Albion is the school that Chad and I went to, but it's also a island in the UK, like a city/island, I believe. Sometimes described as a more than 14-foot tall, the monster's kind was said to have descended from demons. The folklore maintains Gagamag himself was hideously repulsive in nature and even draped himself in various animal skins and to keep unpleasant and intimidating appearance. And he just haunted people. He kind of looks like a troll almost. And he's from Albion. He also, oddly enough, he's wearing a Sigma Chi sweater. I don't know what that's about.
Of course he is. Shots fired. That's too funny. I love it. So my next one for you, Jared. This is also kind of a cool word, and this is a South African mythological creature called a grootslang, which means big snake. And a grootslang is said to have been a mistake by the gods. They made a dangerous creature that was strong, smart, and clever. When God realized the mistake, split the animal into two, the elephant and the snake. But a grootslang is said to still live in a cave in Richtersveld, South Africa, with the head of an elephant and the body of a snake.
How does that work?
But this thing, it looks creepy, Jared. So the tusks look kind of like fangs. Looks like this big black snake, a grootslang. So
I mean, to support a head of a elephant, you got to be a pretty girthy snake.
I mean, have you seen some of these Burmese pythons and stuff they find in the Everglades?
I mean, yeah, I just hate looking at pictures of
Have
them.
you not seen the movie Anaconda with J-Lo and Ice Cube? Yeah, Ice Cube's in it.
Is it Ice Cube? I believe I
Yeah.
actually might have seen that movie, yeah. I never understand these stories that involve gods making mistakes. It's like,
Right.
you're the ones that we're supposed to be worshiping and following, and you're making mistakes?
I mean, I would say some humans out there have definitely been mistakes, maybe, if you want to go that route. But,
Well, I mean, I'm with you on that too, but these are supposed to be gods. We're supposed to be looking up to these people. Be careful when you go to some Slavic countries, because Upira might come get you. She's actually not that bad looking. Upira is the word used to describe vampires in Slavic culture, although there are some slight differences between the myth regarding Upiras and vampires. As one of these differences, Upiras have the ability to walk during the day and did not burn, unlike the vampires that, if they are exposed to sunlight, they burn. There were different opinions as to how the Upira could be killed. According to the belief, staking an Upira in the head with a blessed stake would kill the creature, while some of the people suggested staking in the heart while sinking them in holy water was the way to kill Upiras. That's quite an involved process. You got to stab them while drowning them in holy water.
oh, dear Lord.
Decapitation and incineration were mentioned in the stories as other ways to kill Upiras. If you would like to, that's just saying click here. But so if you're, whenever you go to some of these Slavic countries, keep an eye out for these Upiras.
There you go. I'll have to. I'm in a Slavic country, so I'll have to watch out. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
That is for sure. It's really crazy. All the different mythological creatures. There's two that are very ancient that I think most people know about. Do you know which ones I'm thinking of, Jared?
No. Maybe if you tell me, I'll know. But I need a clue.
Medusa and the Minotaur.
Oh yeah.
So
Interesting,
Medusa.
'cause I was going to talk about centaurs next,
Oh, nice. Okay.
which are similar
nice.
to minotaurs, right?
Yeah. So first of all, Medusa, if you are unaware of the legend, Medusa is this woman with snake hair that if you look into her eyes, she will turn you to stone. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, I have like a book about Czech folklore on my Kindle, and they have a similar story, but I forget what they call it was basically, in the story, they call her a witch, but it's the same premise. If she looks at you, you turn into stone. So I wonder how many other countries and cultures have similar stories where you gaze into the eyes of like a witch or an evil. Usually, unfortunately, it's usually a woman. I don't know why. But if you gaze into their eyes, you get turned into stone. Yes, and then we have the Minotaur, which is half man, half bull. And the story goes, it was in this big crazy maze in, I believe, Greece, right? Ancient Greece. And you had to fight the Minotaur, and I think most people died.
Yeah. I mean, the Greeks they're leading the cause on these creatures.
Oh, for sure.
They've got creatures for days.
Right.
Like the centaur, which is also from Greek mythology, but that one is torso of a human, body of a horse. And for some reason, he also has like either some sort of bow and arrow or axe or something usually with him. There's... Oh, interesting. So this is interesting for no one except for me. But the most significant centaur mentioned in myth is Chiron, which is the name of a Bugatti car, who is known to be a minotaur to some important characters in the Greek mythologies like Achilles and some other one. Despite being immortal, Chiron accidentally shot... Chiron accidentally shot by one of Hercules' arrows, one which Hercules applied the blood of the Hydra, fell into great agony. Later, when Hercules asked Zeus to let Prometheus free, and Zeus asked for a sacrifice, Chiron volunteered and died to free Prometheus and end his own suffering. Shout out to that centaur for being so selfless.
Right. All I gotta say is Hercules, Hercules, Hercules.
a lot of these. That's Fluffy reference. What's his name?
No, that's from the Nutty Professor.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what
I love that movie.
I don't know what I was thinking of that guy. A lot of these also are. I didn't realize how much J.K. Rowling was getting her stuff from mythology. I thought she made up some of these.
Oh, it makes sense. I got one for you though, a Chinese one.
Okay.
Because I feel like we've kind of been leaving Asia out of this, and Asia has some great mythological creatures.
Yeah, I mean the dragon. I assume.
Well, this one is called Nian.
Okay.
And Nian is from China, and apparently there was no greater horror in the villages of ancient China than that day once a year when the Nian would come down from its mountain looking for food. Nothing could stop it. The Nian was immortal, no weapons would hurt it, and no amount of time would make it go away. All the people of ancient China could do was board up their windows, lock their doors, hide under their beds, and pray it left them alive. If the townspeople were lucky, the Nian would eat every last drop of their grain. If they were unlucky, it would come into their house and devour them. And what's interesting is this Nian looks like a mixture of like a lion and a dragon. So it's got like a lion's head, both like fangs coming out, and then a dragon or a snake-like body. And so the story, though, about why there are no more Nian attacks in China is an old man scared it away, and then that man revealed himself to be God and taught the people in ancient China in the villages how to keep the Nian away. And what's even worse about this is anyone could be the victim, and above all, the Nian loved the flesh of children. So pretty creepy,
Always
pretty scary
children.
stuff. I know, right?
What is it about children? I still think a lot of this has to do with scaring children into not misbehaving or to behaving.
And you know what the trick is to keep the demon Nian away.
Do your homework and make your bed.
He does not like the color red. So if you hang red signs on every door, you make loud noises with drums, music, and fireworks, and if you give the children face masks and lanterns, they will be safe.
Well, those are very popular celebration techniques and colors during a lot of Chinese celebrations, aren't they? Isn't
yes.
that?
Yeah.
And that's like they also have like that that sort of dragon thing that people get under and you make it move or whatever, and it's also red. I don't really have any more than I want to talk about, but I want to go through this list and see how many of these remind me of Harry Potter.
Okay.
Number 1, the basilisk.
Yep.
Which is a legendary giant reptile in European mythology. Another one, let's see if I can find another one real quick, would be I know I just saw it. Oh, yeah. The Cerberus, also known as Kerberos, the giant hound with 3 heads guarding the gates of the underworld in Greek mythology.
They also have that in Harry Potter, don't they?
Yeah, I believe in the first one when they're going to get the Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay.
No, excuse me. The Chamber of Secrets. The Chamber of Secrets is blocked by that, and it turns out like it's like Hagrid's pet or something like that, isn't it? Listen, I'm not for all of our
I'm not a Harry Potter expert.
I'm not either. I'm really not either, and I'm only screwing it up. All right, those are the 2 that I came up with off the top of my head, but I was like, well, I didn't realize where J.K. Rowling was getting some of her inspiration from.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, another one is isn't there Cyclops? I'm not even gonna bother. But yeah.
Right. There's a bunch of them in Harry Potter. Yeah, I'm not the right person to be talking about this stuff either. But yeah, there's a ton of them. And there's also some mythical creatures in Lord of the Rings. I was a much bigger Lord of the Rings fan than Harry Potter.
Unicorns? Do they have unicorns in Lord of the Rings? Or maybe that's Harry Potter.
I don't remember. They have giant spiders in the Lord of the Rings. They have walking and talking trees, and they have like this big like phoenix type thing that Gandalf flies on, so he saves the day. I think they also have phoenixes in Harry Potter, don't they?
Yeah, much like Gandalf, it's Professor Dumbledore has one as a pet.
Right, and then they also have like these weird wolf-like creatures in Harry Potter?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Listen, bro.
Anyways,
in Harry Potter, people get angry when you mess up their stories.
So let's move on, and I think it's time we talk some music. What do you think, Jared?
Yes, I agree. My new favorite thing to do is to find artists that I think Chad will love. And I heard this, I heard someone talking about this guy, and I was like, this sounds like it's right up Chad's alley. I mean, I like him too.
What kind of stuff do you look for? Like what are your parameters for stuff that you think I will love?
Most of the time, I prefer to not be something modern. I like this. This might not be an example, but I like uses of the guitar. I like almost like a popular era for you, a safe era that I think is anywhere from like the 60s to the early 70s is a good era.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't really know what it is about this guy, but I just had a feeling that He's an African guy that wears a cowboy hat. I knew you'd like that.
Yep. Yep.
So this guy's name is William Anyabor, and he's an interesting dude. Before we even get into the song, which is called Body and Soul, he's kind of an enigma, which means that there's not much information about him. And he's from Enugu, Nigeria. And not only is he a very popular musician, but he was also a businessman. He grew up, he was crowned a high chief in Enugu, which I assume is similar to maybe being like, knighted in England or something like that.
Right. I would think so too.
And where he lived, he was a very successful businessman working on government contracts and running his own semolina flour mill. And his business success saw his name. His business success led him to be the West African Industrialist of the Year in 1987. Shout out to him. And not only was he making the big bucks in the business industry, but he's also a great musician. And as I mentioned, kind of an enigma to the point where, there's a lot of his music. A lot of his music is out there, but original copies of his music and of his albums and stuff can go from anywhere upwards of $500 for one of his albums, because they're hard to find. And so this.
Thank the Lord for YouTube.
Yeah. And thank the Lord for... I closed it. But the album is called Who is William Anyabor? And it came out in 2013, and it was released by a guy named Luaka Bop, and he compiled together some of William Anyabor's music. And I would like to get your opinion on this, because it has a very sort of... this song came out in, I guess you don't even know exactly when it came out, because you don't really have that much information on the music.
Right,
but
it's
it came
hard
out
to say.
Not recently, let's put it that way.
Right.
And it has a very, electric sound to it. It almost sounds like...
Could be in a movie soundtrack or something.
Yeah. And I wonder, what was used to make this? Because I imagine that this was made before... really computers were big as far as making music goes, right? But it has it almost sounds like all those buttons on my keyboard that I never click, all the sounds on the keyboard that I never click,
right?
But it has a very cool sound. It has this very cool sort of electronic funk sound.
Well, don't they call? I thought they categorized his music as
Afrobeat.
Thank you, Afrobeat.
Yes.
Which I think has a similar type of vibe, like a funkiness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this definitely has a funkiness to it, but it's not quite the same as American funk music.
No.
Like James, when I think of the Godfather of funk, when I think of that, I think of James Brown.
Right.
James Brown has a lot of horn hits.
Louder. More powerful almost.
A little faster too. And then I think if you think of more modern funk music, I think a really safe band to put in that category would obviously be Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right. Okay.
And that funkiness is a lot quicker as well.
Right.
Whereas this has a more laid back vibe. It's almost like I picture a really cool dude walking down the street to this, and this is in the background.
Yeah.
Especially this song, Body and Soul. It just has a great vibe to it. Mm-hmm. I think the guitar riff is really simple. It's super simple. It's maybe 3-4 notes, but it sounds awesome. All the entire atmosphere that Body and Soul and a lot of other William Anyabor's music is just fantastic. And yeah, it has that what was it called? Afrobeat kind of vibe. It's funky. And I love the background singers. Sorry for interrupting.
I was just about to say the exact same thing. Yeah.
Love the background singers. They're awesome.
I mean, the background singers, it almost seems unfair to call them background singers, because in a lot of songs, they have a bigger role in the song than he does.
For sure. And I love the fact that you get the kind of the dichotomy of a man's voice and the women's voice singing.
Yep.
It gives it a whole different atmosphere. I think in a way, it thickens and builds the sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a huge fan of it. And it doesn't sound, even though it's probably an old song, it sounds very fitting today. It doesn't sound really that out of place to me. Right. And I'm a huge fan, and I'm glad I found him, because it's great. it's great. I don't want to call it background music, but it's great music to have like
It's good chilling out music.
yeah, chilling out music, or even like if you have say like a laid back vibes party going on, maybe for all of you that were celebrating 420 the other day, put that on in the background. Still have
Laid
that.
back.
I was actually for a second I thought maybe you didn't have it on. Did you wear that? Is that what you wore today? Like when you went to
Germany?
Yeah.
I mean, I wore this button down, but I had my laid back vibes on, and it was actually at first kind of warm in my apartment and cooled down a little bit. So I figured I'd just throw this on real quick.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a great song. So check it out on our Twitter page, Untranslatable One, Body and Soul by William. I think it's actually pronounced Anyebo. I don't.
Okay.
I think it's Anyebo.
That's fair.
But
So
anyways,
they don't pronounce the R.
I don't know. Maybe not.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm definitely not an expert on African, let alone Nigerian languages. That's for sure. Well, Jared, it's time for a Czech word of the pod. Mm-hmm. And you know, a lot of these mythical creatures have one thing in common. And that thing in common is they are zvířata.
Scary?
Well, that's true. But I think wasn't fear the word I did on the last episode?
Yeah. 2 episodes ago. Last was budget travel.
That's right.
What was that? I forgot. I haven't been keeping up as hard as I used to be honest with you.
Fear, I believe, was that strach?
I think you're right.
Was fear.
I think you're right.
that was fear. Anyways, zvířata is animals.
Oh,
Most of these mythical creatures are some type of weird combination of animals, and the commonality of all these is they gonna kill you.
Yeah.
You gonna die, they gonna kill you.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
want
the
your
commonality.
souls or your children.
Or your blood or something. Exactly. Exactly.
None of them are vegetarians.
Right. Exactly. All right, Jared. So now it's time for some jokes. And I tried to find monster jokes. They were all Halloween based. This is not a Halloween episode. This is mythical creatures, although you could relate those. So I tried to run with our animal theme and find some good stuff. So here we go. So where do orcas hear music?
Where?
When they listen to orchestras.
Oh, how did I not think of that?
Right? Why did the cow cross the road?
To listen to William Anyebo.
I mean, that's a good reason. But no, the cow crossed the road to get to the other side.
Oh, that's real cheesy.
Right? What do you call a fish without an eye?
What's that?
Fish.
Oh.
I can't really say it without the eye.
Yeah.
Right? What do you call a cold dog sitting on a bunny?
What's that?
A chili dog on a bun.
Chili dog bun. Dogs are delicious.
God damn it, Jared. God damn it. Oh my God. Okay. So Jared, I'll let you pick the last one. Do you want a sheep joke or an alligator joke?
Sheep.
Sheep. Where did the sheep go on vacation?
I don't know.
The Bahamas.
Oh my gosh.
So there you go.
I can't tell if these jokes are getting better or worse as time goes on.
Probably worse, let's be honest. Probably worse. And sadly no originals this week,
That's okay.
but hopefully
that's
next
tough.
time. Right. All right. So it's time to encapsulate our episode today about mythical creatures with a quote of the pod. I gotta say, it's fun and exciting, but also a little difficult coming up with a quote off the top of the dome.
Yeah.
And sometimes they aren't as smooth or as inspiring as I would like them to be.
We can workshop it here, though.
Right. It's a good way to learn, especially make hopefully some memorable quotes on the spot. Anyways, I think for today's episode, I think the most interesting and most important thing about mythical creatures is the way in which they are, one, connected to the culture and history of a nation, but number two, the different types of animals they use. Because some of these mythical creatures we've been talking about don't always exist where they pop up, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there are no lions in mainland China. So where the thought of a lion's face for Nian came up, I have no idea,
That's
right?
a good point, yeah.
And some of these obviously do make sense. Like, you have wolf-like creatures where there might be wolves in nature, which makes sense, right? You have sea creatures where you have oceans where we have no idea what kind of things could be lurking under the deep waters.
I mean, like even for example, like Sasquatch is an ape-like creature, but do we really have like monkeys like that or apes like that in the U.S. or
definitely
anything?
not. But see, I think with Sasquatch, I would be willing to bet the creature that it originates from is probably bears.
That's what I was thinking. But people don't, people that believe in them don't relate them to bears or don't say they have any relation to bears. They say it's like an ape-like creature.
Well, of course they don't.
I would bet it would start with someone having seen a bear somewhere or something like that. And
Right.
What's that?
Right, exactly. So I think what's just so fascinating about mythical creatures is what they have to do with the culture, the history, sometimes also the religion, and the animals of the culture.
I wonder if some of the thought process behind that is like finding a creature, when you're finding a creature that can fight this creature, for example, the lions.
Right.
In itself, maybe the lion is, especially a long, long time ago, is almost sort of considered like a myth or a legend.
Right.
So it's like maybe we
that's
find
a good point.
another, creature that's sort of unknown to fight our own personal one. So you got to go far away to find something that can take our honor, this creature native to our land,
right, kind of like the snollygaster, which is that reptile-like creature near Washington D.C.
Yeah,
and the Dewego, which is a wolf-like creature. So yeah, you're right. That's interesting, and that also brings up another point. Maybe the reason why some mythical creatures do have such myth. One, obviously, is to explain the unexplained. Sometimes we don't know why people die or how they necessarily died.
Yeah.
So that's one. Number two is with all these mythical creatures, like you mentioned, maybe they use some of these animals that aren't native to the lands because they do have this mythical-like aura, right? The idea of knowing what a lion looks like when you've never actually seen one.
Right.
And hearing about it does give it kind of a myth-like aura or something.
Yeah, and thousands or hundreds of years ago, I'm sure people in China, for example, once again, had never seen a lion because there's probably not that much travel that far going on back then. Or if there is, they're probably not coming back.
Right, for sure. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Jared, this has been... Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's go. Please.
Well, Jared, this has been an enlightening episode. Very fun to hear these different mythical creatures. Hide your kids, hide your wife. These mythical creatures be killing everybody up in here. So make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows, figure out ways to defeat these mythical creatures if they are very prominent and prevalent in your culture. So be very careful. Let us know how mythical creatures have maybe tainted or scarred your childhood, or some interesting ones you enjoy the stories of, or just they're kind of cool. I would love to hear about them because I tend to be kind of a nerd when it comes to some of these things, as we've discussed in this episode. So to pass along this information, you can do it one of many ways. Number one, untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Shoot us an email, send us some links, some pictures. Don't be too scary though. I don't want to keep Jared or myself up at night after being traumatized by these mythical creatures. You could also check out our Instagram. Maybe we can, if we get any cool mythical creatures, maybe we can pop those on our page as well for you all to enjoy. That would be pretty fun and a little creepy. Also, check out our Twitter for Songs of the Pod, especially if you want to groove out to some really awesome Afro beats by William Onyeabo. Onyeabo, thank you. Body and Soul is the song of the pod this week, so check that out. And also, if you haven't already, check out our website. It is absolutely fantastic, and that's a great way to find our episodes. Depending on whichever streaming method you like to use, you can find them right up there. You can also find tons of awesome untranslatables that you can use to impress people at your dinner parties, ice cream socials, or any other soirees you may be involved in. And lastly, please give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. The best would be 5 stars. The worst would also be 5 stars. So drop us 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. And let us know
a little love.
What we can do, what you enjoy, and what we could also do to improve the podcast, because there's always room for improvement. So, as you all know, and all we can say is we thank you so much for your support. And as we say here on the Untranslatable Podcast, Dziękujemy.